thank you once again for joining me for Transformational Conversations, where we are taking the conversation on consciousness, spirituality, universal laws, and so much more beyond the leading edge. So who's our leading edge guest today? She's a very good friend of mine, Tiarnie Vidler. Welcome, Tiarnie. Lovely to see you over here.
Hello, beautiful.
So let me introduce you properly to Tiarnie. She has been passionately creating and co-creating with the universe an abundant, fulfilling and authentic life for the past 15 years. She's an awakener, a facilitator and a gentle guide, allowing you to tap back into your fullest and truest potential, your infinite self, so that you too can create an amazing life for yourself. And don't we all deserve that? Tiarnie will be your biggest cheerleader, and using a variety of tools from her extensive toolkit will assist you to achieve your dreams and a deeply happy life. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Tiarnie's toolkit. She just has so many amazing things that she does. Just a few of them are astrology, numerology, the liquid crystals, chakras, oracle readings, crystals, and lots more, which we might hear some more about today as we talk to Tiarnie. First of all, Tiarnie, let me say thank you for joining us. I would absolutely love for you, first of all, to just tell us a little bit more about you, other than what I've just shared, about what you're all about.
Okay, thank you. It's an honour to be here. You know that as soon as you asked me, I was like, yes, of course. An absolute honour, as Anne is one of my closest and dearest friends too. Ultimately, you know, for me, it's about us creating our lives. It's about, you know, master yourself, master the universe. You know, Anne's got her beautiful mind your own vibration, and I've got master yourself, master yourself, and you master the universe. So that's ultimately the foundation of all of my work. And astrology, you know, being a blueprint of who you are, when you were born, where you were born, and it giving you insight into who you are. And knowing who you are is the biggest gift of all. I think that know thyself, and that's it. You can master everything else beyond. So living a conscious and awakened life. And, you know, I think is it Ram Dass that said the best thing that I can do for you is work on myself, and the best thing that you can do for me is work on yourself. That's it. That's primarily all I want for everyone, is to know who they are and to come from that space to create with the universe, to, you know, actually live an extraordinary life, because I know that ordinary life does not interest me at all. So, you know, but the only way to do that is to know who you are. It's very easy in these days to be distracted by stuff and people's opinions and all those sorts of things, that we lose who we really are. And this time, and I think it's perfect that you're doing this in this, you know, universal 1 year. It is, we're at the beginning of a brand new 9-year cycle. And I think that if people are showing up authentically and truly this 1 year, you're planting seeds to greatness, you know. And these conversations that Anne has, you know, are powerful, and they're potent, and they can help change you and remind you and remember who you are and why you're here.
Thank you so much. Now, look, I just want to say I love your passion. And it's been the thing about you that I've loved from the moment I first came across you. And I say that in order to say to our viewers, or to recommend to our viewers, that if they want a little bit of your passion every single month, to make sure that you like Tiarnie's page on Facebook. It's just simply Tiarnie, and I'll include a link when we put this all out there. Wherever you are, it'll be either up there or down there. But you'll find a link to Tiarnie's Facebook page. I highly recommend that if you want a little bit of this passion every single month, that you jump on and watch her monthly energy overview video that she does every single month, usually around the first day of the month, if not the first day of the month. It's absolutely worth watching to catch some of the passion, but also to find out what the energy is doing, what crystals you can use. I mean, you provide so much information in there. Perhaps just expand on that a little bit for me before we go on.
So yeah, the energy overview, you know, knowledge is power, you know, and awareness is the key. And without awareness, you live this unconscious life going, oh, this is happening to me, and oh, bad things, and all this stuff's happening, and why is this happening to me? And when we know that the universe, you know, nothing's happening to us, it's happening for us. We all know that. We've all said that. That's one of our favorite sayings, because the universe is constantly providing us with the energy that we are. Like, you know, we're not attracting what we want, we are attracting what we are. And that's the key. And so for me, sharing the awareness around what's coming up astrologically, and of course, I probably miss a million things, you know, because astrologically there's hundreds of things every week with different trines and squares and, you know, sextiles. And I like being very practical. It's something that I'm a heavy Taurus base. So I like being practical and giving you tools that you can use. So ultimately the energy overview is just that. It's from my perspective and my heart. Yes, I will look at the astrology and the numerology and the liquid crystal month and you know, and feel into the month. And if it's, you know, we have an inhale month where it's more about being in, and an exhale month where it's more about coming out of the shell. And, you know, it's just this conscious ebb and flow, this dance of life. And if we can move with the months, you know, then all of a sudden everything, you know, works better, and we can be aware of, oh, that's right, there was that Jupiter trine this, that day, so it really helped me to expand in yada yada yada. So, you know, like if we're aware, we can then create consciously. I think that being unaware would be a hard yakka life to live. I mean, it's not one I've lived, so maybe when I was 18 and younger, but from 18, no, you know. So awareness is a tool and it's a key, and understanding the energies and what's going on, you know, it helps again you to, you know, to take ownership and to, you know, to work with the universe, as opposed to thinking that the universe is, you know, just doing things.
Yeah, I love that you say that about it empowers you to take control of your own life, to have some sense of self-responsibility, which is so important in this time. Now, I actually say the universe, I don't say that. I say life is happening for me. So it's around the same sort of thing, taking that full responsibility for what's going on in your life. Even if it appears that it's happening outside of you, taking responsibility for it. How's this going to serve me is a great question to ask. Thank you for sharing that. Here's what I want to do today, though. I want to get to relationships, conscious relationships. Now, I don't know that this is something that you talk about a lot out there in the public arena, but I want to invite you to talk to me. I know you, and I know your partnership, and I see the passion in it. I see the consciousness in it. I see the respect in it. And, you know, there's a lot of relationships out there that just don't have that. So because we're in Valentine's week this week, I would love to talk to you and just pull out all the juicy stuff about your very conscious relationship, ups and downs. We all know that we all go through those sorts of things. Just talk to us about that. Let's take the conversation around having a conscious relationship and taking responsibility for that to the, you know, beyond the leading edge.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a topic that really excites me, and there is some little things in the work behind the scenes around relationships, and especially, you know, I won't go right into it here, but especially around once a woman, and maybe man too, I can only speak from a woman's perspective though, obviously, but once a woman gets into the spiritual arena and somewhat comes awakened or enlightened, all of a sudden she wants to leave her partner or her husband, and, you know, so there's a very...
No, I love that you've brought this up, because that is definitely something with a lot of the clients that come to me, the very first session they have with me, everything's topsy-turvy, and one of the things they're always talking about, or mostly talking about, is my partner doesn't understand me, they don't believe what I believe, I think I'm going to have to leave this relationship. And yeah, that's right in some cases, but in the majority, it's not. So yeah, keep going. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is something that, you know, I've sort of got in the works as well with someone, that we both want to talk about this. It's something that we're both passionate about. So I will keep Anne up to date with that event that will happen. But, you know, still talking a little bit about that without going, you know, a 2-hour conversation with it, because everyone knows that I'll talk for 2 hours about it.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, it's just this, you know, I went through it as well. And, you know, in 2 days, I've been on the 16th of February, I met Joel 16 years ago. And, you know, and I was still diving in to my spirituality, and, you know, that's what I wanted to be. And, you know, and he was, you know, a 19, 20-year-old guy, and, you know, and we went through a lot of stuff. You know, those first few years for us were rocky, you know, but it's that, you know, I think life is simple, and of course it's complex too. But the simplicity sometimes is that if you really want something, you work for it. And if you don't, you make an excuse, you know. And a deep knowing when I met Joel was that I would marry him. I hadn't spoken to him. I hadn't met him. I seen him in the corner, and I just pointed out and went, I'm going to marry that man. And my girlfriend was like, you're crazy. And she thought I was crazy. And then I met him, and, you know, and I married him. And even when we broke up, you know, a few times for those first few years, my heart was aching. I'm like, but I'm meant to marry this man. Like, how can I break up with him? And I had to trust that there is a divine plan, and I had to let go, you know, because I think that we both had to let go, and I had to find myself in those moments. And we've both grown in this relationship. But Joel has always been extremely wise, and I got caught up in the spiritual sometimes. And I came back from one of Brandon Bay's I went to a full week workshop with Brandon Bay's, and I came back and I was like, I'm going to do all of this and la, la, la. And if you can't handle it, like, you can't be with me. And he went, okay, baby, all good, you know. And he's an anchor, and he's solid, and he's grounded. And, you know, I've got all my planets up the top half of my chart, and he's got them all down the bottom. And it makes sense, you know, it just makes sense that we are perfect for each other. We are, you know, exactly where we are meant to be in this relationship, and we have worked for it. And that's the thing, is that we have been consistent. And a big thing for me is, you know, at the beginning, you feel like if you change your partner, or if they, you know, if they become what you want them to be. And I certainly did. I was like, oh, you know, if we could just talk astrology for 6 million hours, and you'd come to all the workshops and read the books, then it'd be perfect. And I wasn't allowing him to be who he was. And that's a very big misconception around love, because obviously it's selfish if we are trying to change someone. And I learnt unconditional love. You know, he taught it to me, to be honest, because he has never tried to change me. And I am a quirky, eccentric, probably hard to handle woman for a lot of men. It takes a very strong man to hold space for someone like me. I'm not hard work in the typical way that I need my hair done and my nails done. And I'm not a mainstream hard work sort of woman. And he's not a mainstream hard work sort of guy. He's not full of ego, and, you know, he's not, he isn't a chauvinist or anything like that. So these real norms, I think people say, oh yeah, go and, you know, yeah, I won't go down that path, but yeah, we're not in the norm, like, we're not probably, and what's normal anyway? I'm not saying that there's wrong or right or normal or good or bad. I'm just saying that for us, you know, he held me when I needed to be held. When I'd fly off and go, oh, you know, I'm going to blah, 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 blah. And he's like solidly going, you know, I love you and I'll support you, you know. And it took me a few more years to learn that and to completely love Joel unconditionally. And people might, you know, find that a bit weird, how, you know, but the problem is there's that misconception around unconditional love, because most of the time it's not. You know, if you're not making me happy, if you're not doing this, if you're not doing that, then I'm not, and then that's when I'm not happy, you know. And your response, like, the biggest thing is that your husband, even right now, Joel is not responsible for my happiness. Happiness comes from within me.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about unconditional love for a little bit, because I think it's so important. Not just, I mean, we can have this unconditional spiritual love and all of those sorts of things, but our relationships are our greatest personal growth, or even spiritual growth, whatever growth you want to call it. Our relationships give us the opportunity to truly become who we believe ourselves to be often. You know, we go around talking about unconditional love and these sort and oneness, and then in our relationships and even with our children, not just necessarily our partner, romantic partner, but our children, we expect them to behave in certain ways in order for us to love them.
Absolutely.
And that's not unconditional love.
No.
So I love that.
It's to swallow too, you know, it's when you can really come to the honest, raw, naked awareness around what unconditional love really is. And it really does mean the letting go of wanting to change your partner, your husband, your other half, whoever it is, male, female, I'm all for anything, whatever love is for you. If you're trying to mold that person into something that will make you happy, it's not unconditional. And it's selfish. It's coming from a selfish place that you need to be this sort of person for me to love you. And it's a wonderful revelation, because once you can drop all of that, everything just goes deeper and deeper. And you know, and I find that each year, you know, our marriage is more solid than it was, but it's because we've done the groundwork. You know, so many people are caught up in, we've got a car and we've got a house and we've got babies and we're going to have babies, but their marriage is in the gutter. You know, they're not willing to work on themselves. And like Ramdas says, the best thing I can do for Joel is to work on me. And you know what? The best thing in the world that he can do for me is to work on himself. Simple. I don't want anything more from that. Like, that to me is unconditional. And Joel did teach me that. And it was really interesting when I first sort of got into the liquid crystals 5 or 6 years ago. About 5 years ago, actually. I met a teacher, and he looked at Joel's liquid crystal name, and he he didn't know me. He didn't know Joel. He'd never, ever met me before. He knew the crystals for our names, and he just went, "He is here to teach you unconditional love." And I just burst out in tears, because he is. He has been the one to teach me unconditional love. I didn't get it growing up. You know, I found it a struggle to love myself unconditionally. And when we can't, you know, when we have issues working on ourselves and loving ourselves, not this whole, like, you just have to love yourself and do stuff for yourself, but a deeper connection to know who you are. I think that's loving yourself, knowing who you are, because we can always, you know, and people are like, go get a pedicure, buy yourself flowers. That's easy. You know, maybe it's not easy for some people. And if it's not for you, you know, that's something you have to ask yourself. But knowing who you are, that's unconditional love. That's loving who you are. And then you just become love, and you're not searching for it. You're not wanting it. You're not needing it. No one will ever fill you up. Ever, 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 ever.
And yet, conversely, the minute that you do love yourself unconditionally, so does everybody else.
Absolutely.
Because they can't give you what you're not already reflecting out there in the world. I love I love the liquid crystals, and I just don't think enough people know about them, right? I mean, I'm used to you and our other friend when we get together just blah, blah, blah about, and I just sit there and listen and marvel at how much knowledge you guys have around the liquid crystals and so many other things. But I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit more about the liquid crystals, just so that people can know what they are, so that they can kind of go, oh, okay, I want to have that sort of experience. So what's my name, Trinity, and where do I find out, and what does it all mean? Yeah. And tell me one other thing. Is there anything within the liquid crystals that you can use in a relationship?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
you know,
great.
Like, you know, people who love oils will go, there's an oil for that. And I'm straight away going, there's a crystal for that. It's the same thing. It's the same. And the liquid crystals are a modality that encompasses oils as well. So each of the 77 basic liquid crystals encompasses a totem animal, and it also encompasses an oil that you can use as well. So the liquid crystals is fundamentally the entire crystalline energy, like the whole structure of the crystal is what you're taking. You know, so if I pick up this piece of celestite, whilst this is powerful, and I'll never stop using physical crystals, I love them, and I've used them for over 15 years, so there's not one modality better than the other. And I think that, you know, when you're on this journey, you know, be mindful of who's trying to trick you into saying that this modality works and those don't, or do this, or come my way, or jump on blah, blah, blah. Just trust yourself and don't dive in, because there is no one way. You know, there's just not. And there's certainly no right way.
No, there's only your way.
Your way and my way. And they meet sometimes and sometimes they don't. And that's okay. But, you know, working with the cell type, powerful, amazing. But whilst I take the crystal, I'm taking the full geometric structure. This is just, if you think of like cells and, you know, the little round bits and I'm not sciencey, you know, you're thinking of some of the molecular structure. This is holding some of the molecular structure of the entire celestite, because it's done based on a complete, you know, we're living in a full grid, like an energy grid. So Justin is the creator of the liquid crystals, and he's actually gotten all pieces of the celestite. That's what goes in and that's what you take. So you're taking the origin, like the full origin from wherever celestite comes from, on a very energetic, vibrational level. Powerful. I call them game changers, because that's what they are. He probably describes that better. I always find it a little bit tricky describing them, because I'm such a feeler. I feel my way into the world. I feel, you know, my heart tells me. Someone can tell me a fact, but the study says this. I'm like, that doesn't mean anything to me. Like what you're saying doesn't
feel like.
and sometimes, you know, which is like, to Joel's dismay, I mean, not talking too much astrology because I know it can get a little bit intricate, but Joel's fundamental speaking is factual. It's not that he's black and white. He's probably more grey than me, to be honest, but it's very factual. He reads the paper. He's very well read. He is probably the most intelligent person I've met. He's articulate. So he delivers information really well. So he's got this certain house in his chart, like we all do, our third house, which is about communication. He's got 3 planets in that house, and they're all structured planets. They're deep structured, like instead of just skimming over stuff and picking out the words, he knows the whole story. That ain't me.
Sounds like a perfect match for you, though, you see.
It is. And that's what I mean.
Two pieces of the one.
Exactly. And it is, because explaining the liquid crystals, I find the hardest thing to do. I'm like, let me tell you how amazing they are, take them, and then they don't need an explanation. But that's just the way I work. I understand not everyone works like that. So you can go onto the liquidcrystals.com and you can find out your name, Trinity, by simply just tapping on the right-hand little icon that says life purpose reading, I think it is. It's the first one along the... Yep, and then you just pop that in. You just pop your name in. Your birth name is what I suggest for people to do, because that's actually the name you chose. If you've decided to change your name or been given a spiritual name, let's not go there. But if you've decided to do that, you can still have a look at what those crystals are. I know people who have changed their names, and their birth names are the exact same 3 crystals, so they can't run away from themselves. And that's an interesting thing for me, is that no matter where you go, the truth will always follow you. So your birth name and your birth time, it is who you actually chose that. So, you know, you might not resonate with it on some level, but it's actually your purpose here to live that out. And yes, if there's nicknames or you have changed your name legally, definitely by all means put that in and see how different they are. See what you did try and run away from, as opposed to changing. And just a small example is, I have a friend who has her birth name and she's shortened it and changed it, and she only introduces herself like that. I can't call her that because I've known her. It's too hard for me. And her birth name crystals, whilst they're similar, they change in her name that she's now given herself, and it becomes harder and there's more physical ailments around it. So it's very interesting. She's chosen the harder path. So it's very interesting, you know, be very mindful. Your name is your most powerful mantra in the world. Yes, Om Mani Padme Hum is very powerful, and yes, Sanskrit mantras are amazing. I love chanting them. But your name is the most powerful word in the world.
I really love that, because it reminds me of a teaching of Wayne Dyer's, where he talks about the word God and the vibration that it carries, and how using it as a mantra. But and that then takes me to the point that we are each God. So our name is that.
It is.
That gives me goosebumps. As you said that and I was making the connection, I was like, whoa.
That is powerful.
That is very powerful. So, yeah, you're right. Our name is our most powerful mantra. Love it.
And that again
Love it.
comes straight back to what we were talking about at the beginning, knowing yourself, knowing your vibration. You know, I have people in the liquid crystals who clients have come to me, oh, never take my name, Trinity. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Isn't that interesting that you don't want to take your name, Trinity, that you will distract as much as you can, other than going that I am the creator of my life. I am responsible for my life, but there's no ownership there. So it's your name is just a part of all of this that we're talking about.
Yeah, we do so much, don't we, to avoid knowing ourselves as enough, to avoid tapping into our own power, to avoid knowing ourselves as the creator of our reality. I mean, you know, I did it for many, many years and I still do it. It's it's part of human nature to some degree.
Absolutely.
But you get to a point where you know that you're doing it and so you then make that different choice.
Exactly.
But no, I spent a very long time avoiding my power. I did a lot of this wanting to change my name to a spiritual name. It's a funny story, actually. I'll just quickly share it because I made this decision and I had a numerologist do a reading for me and give me the perfect name, right? She gave me three choices. She gave me three choices. And so I chose the one that I wanted and I filled out all the forms to get it done officially and I sent it off. And about a month later, I was like, oh shit, I don't actually want to do this. I just had like this moment of realization, what the hell am I doing changing my name? And it's funny because I thought, you know, you've sent your form off, the payment was included. It's a done deal, right? But I didn't hear from them for months and months. And I rang them one day and said, you know, I'm just following up. And they said, we don't seem to have received it. And then they rang me back about 2 months later and said, oh, we've just received this application. Do you want to still go ahead? I said, no, can you just bin it, please? So it was, very bizarre for me. But what I did do, unfortunately, was change it on my Facebook page. So now my Facebook page, because it was the second change, you can only do 2 changes. So now that name is on my Facebook page all the time. So whenever I have to share it, that other name is there, which was Anne Mara, which was very much the same as my name, which is Anne Margaret. Yes, so it was so similar, but what was I thinking? Again, I was trying to avoid knowing my power and actually being in the world in my power, which now I embrace, of course. So that's just a funny little story about that. I thought it was very interesting, going down that path of changing names and things like that. Yeah. So tell me, Tiarnie, what would be the biggest piece of advice? And you probably covered this already just in the conversation, but if someone were to say to you, I'm in a relationship, I'm working on myself, I'm really working on myself and I'm wanting to love unconditionally, how do I approach this with the other person? How do I have a conversation with them and say, you know, I want to be this way and I want to love you unconditionally and this is what I'm going to do. Now, of course, they don't have to have that conversation. I understand that. But true. If they wanted to, just kind of not in a way of saying to the other person, I expect you should be a certain way as well, but rather to say to the person, I want to be better and I want to encourage you to look at your stuff as well so that we can do this together, we can journey together.
Yeah. And I mean, look, like you said, sometimes the conversation doesn't need to happen, and the best, you know, one of the best ways I feel to even do that is to do just that. Do it. You start changing who you are and you start acting in these ways, and it does actually rub off on the other person. Now, the little story I have around this unconditional love is actually from a friend of mine who was just talking, and her church person told her something as her husband was drinking a lot of alcohol and coming in very early hours of the morning, and she was with the kids, and you know, she was getting resentful and angry. And so she went to her pastor, that's what it's called, sorry, that slipped out of my mind. And yeah, she went to her pastor, and her pastor said, you know, unconditional love is allowing him to be that. So and not trying to change him. And obviously that's quite a destructive sort of situation. And you know, and by all means, like if you are in a very destructive, violent, aggressive, you know, a conversation like that will probably not change that person. You know, you think of your safety first. And we know that as women now, it's all, you know, being, you know, not going down that path too much. But yeah, hear what I'm saying. It's not that we just stay in a relationship like that at all. But this particular analogy and what she did really helped me. And this was only a few years ago, actually, maybe like 4 years or 5 years ago or something. And she said to me, so what I started to do was when he came home after drinking, I would leave water there for him. I'd leave him Panadol. I would let him sleep. I wouldn't bother him. And he changed himself. So he is now hasn't had a drink for I don't know how many years. It's a long time. And they're still together with many children, grandchildren, everything's good. But what that showed me is that if someone really wants to change, they will, you know, and why would you ever want to force someone to be in a relationship with you if they really don't want to be there and you've got these expectations, which I must say, let go of expectations, because, you know, it confuses everything. It conflicts you. It creates so much stress and drama. And what I've learnt too is, you know, not talking about so much sometimes is sometimes the key. That's actually the key. So if you are modeling this behavior, and last year I had a few relationships that I helped. You know, the woman would come in and there's all this stuff going on, and I worked with her and she worked on herself, and she came back and she goes, we've had the best month ever. Like and she was ready to walk out of like an 18-year marriage. She goes, we've had the best month ever. If we could have months like this forever, it only gets better. I said, that's what's happening. That's what will happen if you want to happen. So, you know, your partner will change, you know, and he will see what you're doing. You know, he will see you making commitments to reading or going to workshops and things like that. And then when you're encouraging him to be his best self, you know, sitting down and saying, I'd like you to do this and the work that you should do, doesn't work, because then you're trying to change that person. So I've been on all parts of this, and, you know, a big thing is that, you know, is that acceptance, you know, wanting what's best for your partner and helping to encourage them and inspire them and support them and relish in their dreams. And, you know, me and Joel have such deep communication. Like, I don't understand how any relationship functions like here with no real depth. I don't understand that, because we know when we are out of balance by this much. You know, there's no such thing as a silent treatment in our house. Like, just doesn't happen. Like, if stuff's going on, we talk about it, we feel it. If it's my stuff, I deal with it. You know, sometimes by putting something on your partner, you're just making you feel better, but does it make them feel better?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And I want to, you know, I come back to Wayne Dyer again, and I think this is happening because you and we both love him so much and his work. But again, a very succinct quote that goes around that he said was that when you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at change. And I think that wraps up exactly what you're saying there. And I like to say that when you give unconditional love, in other words, when you're looking through the eyes of love at anybody around you, and this is essentially what your friend was doing, being of service in love to him by providing what would make him feel better, encouraged him to kind of go, I mustn't be as bad as I think I am. Exactly. You know, this person's not punishing me for doing this thing. Maybe I am an all right kind of person.
Maybe I'm worth it. Maybe I'm worth it. Maybe we are worth it.
And it brings them to anybody that you look at through the eyes of love, it reminds them that that's what they are. So they start behaving that way.
Absolutely.
So, it's all about you and the way that you...
And that's poignant, you know, that is the key right there, is that So many women punish their men constantly, you know, nagging and bitching and your towel's on the ground. And it's like, if you're fighting about toilet paper, like that meme that goes around about, oh, the toilet paper. I've never ever in 16 years had that conversation. Who cares? If you are fighting about little things, you've got some shit to do. You've got some work to do. And, you know, women, you know, if women want some amazing, you know, an amazing guy to watch, his name's John Wineland, as in wine land, which was, you know, heaven for many women. But he has some short little clips. My friend Susanna Frioni, she's on Facebook, and she interviewed him. An amazing, one of the best interviews I've listened to. He's incredible. And he talks about, you know, women are so caught up in themselves. What do I want? You're not listening to me and all this stuff. But these men are craving to not be emasculated, which so many women do to their men. So I could talk about this for eons.
To just have a woman look at them through the eyes of love and accept them for who they are. But again, yeah, absolutely. But again, I do have to say that it has to be the right man. In other words, I know in the past I've had relationships where I've been offering love to the person constantly, but because they've been trained that women are a certain way, in other words, every woman before me didn't want them to go fishing on the weekend. So therefore, if I said, yeah, that's fine, off you go, there was a problem.
Wow.
So we have to also, you know, be aware of that if you are giving of unconditional love and it's not being accepted, then there's something there that needs to be, you know, you need to just keep pushing, and by pushing I mean simply continue looking through the eyes of love, and then going from there. But yes, I just
and holding that man in a new space, saying, okay, I'm not your past, I'm your future. And if we, you know, the analogy by Justin, the liquid crystal guy, you know, which I live by, is that when you go to bed at night, you die and then you're reborn of a morning. So carrying old hurts and old wounds, it does not serve us. And yes, of course, we are human and we've all got work to do around that. But I must admit, in the last few years, when that quote came up for me, it has helped me dramatically. If I'm not willing to step up and say, you pissed me off, Joel, or la, 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 I go to bed that night, I'm not allowed to bring it up the next morning. It's as simple as that. And truly let it go. And
I love that.
It is a great practice to try. If you don't have the courage to say it, you're not allowed to bring it up, you know. And if they ask, oh, what's wrong? And you go, nothing, nothing. But really something's wrong. We went to counselling, couples counselling, when we fell pregnant with Indy, who was our first child together, because Zenadia, I was pregnant at 16 with Zenadia, so she has a different father. Biologically, Joel is her father. But when we were pregnant with Indy, 11 years ago, we went to counselling. Well, it's a bit rough. We weren't even living together. You know, I knew I was going to marry him, and we'd pushed through that barrier of we are together forever, you know. And that was one of her guidelines. And she's like, if he asks you, are you okay? And you say yes, you're then not ever allowed, ever, to bring up if you weren't okay. And and that was challenging back then, like 10 years ago.
I love it.
Young, and I was like, whoa, that's huge. But on a deeper level now, it is that you go to bed each night and that's it. The day has gone. You wake up every single day with a brand new opportunity to live, to create, to connect. You've got these brand new opportunities. So stop holding your guy in the doghouse, because there's so many women who do. If where he puts his toilet paper or whatever, if that's pissing you off, ask deeper what's really going on, because that's not real. Like if he's triggering you and frustrating you by meaningless things, you've got to really be honest and raw about yourself within that marriage or relationship, you know. And these men these days, I've always had a very strong pull towards men. And then when I started watching John Wineland's stuff, I was just like, oh my God, he's amazing, because he's nailing it, you know. He's a man and he's saying, fuck, give us a break. He goes, we're actually like dogs.
I love it. I'm going to have to go and find him. And because that's not the narrative that's out there.
No. And he says, we want to love you, but you make it so difficult. You know, it's not about games anymore, ladies, you know, making them jump through hoops and tell you what's on your mind. It's got nothing to do with it. You know, you be real with your man, be vulnerable, let him be that soft place to fall, you know. Like John Wineland said, stop treating me like I'm your business. You know, like there's these women now, these very atypical, strong women who are controlling, and that's what they will put their man in the doghouse constantly, and he's walking on eggshells. I can say it because I see it. Yeah. I know a lot of women who are like that to their men, and I feel for their men. You know, here I am, like I just raise my man up constantly because, again, the best thing he can do for me is love himself and work on himself, and vice versa. You know, I'm glad I remembered that Ram Dass thing this morning, actually, because it's come in handy, because that's really, truly the fundamental of it all. Let go of expectations, you know, vibrate, like what you said with the Wayne Dyer quote is, you know, when the things you look at, change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that's perfectly it. And that's where self-inquiry and self-responsibility and self-love and letting go of expectations and trying to mold someone into your perfect person becomes, you know, when you're doing all of that and working on yourself, all of those things start to fall away, and you see people who they truly are. And, you know, Joel, you know, it's amazing what Joel said to me. You know, I've often said, because, you know, those first few years, like I said, I'm an intense woman, and, you know, I was a bit wild, and, you know, I've got that wild side too. I'm a bit fierce, and, you know, but he stuck it out. He you know, he what's that word? Stuck it? No, stood it. Stuck it out.
Stuck it out.
I don't know that word. I'm having a problem with communicating. He stuck it out with me, and I've said to him in the past, I'm like, you know, why did you stay with me? Because, you know, I was, you know, probably not great. I wasn't at my best, that's for sure. And he got that, you know, he dealt with that. And he just goes, because I always knew you'd become this person, you know. I always knew that was who you really were. But, you know, he was able to hold me in that for so long. And that's what I mean. He taught me unconditional love. You know, I was ready to move to a different state with one of these spiritual guys while me and Joel were having our, you know, final, it's over, we're definitely not getting back together. That was the longest time we'd had a break for, was quite like about, I don't know, 4 months or something like that. And I met a guy at like Brandon Bay's stuff. So of course that was just like everything I thought that it was going to be. He was the most emotional wreck, superficial, not good, not messy. That's what he was. So I got everything I wanted, and then I seen it wasn't what I wanted. You know what I mean? Like we always think we want something until we get it, and then we're like, is this what you really want? Joel is, you know, astrologically we have a South Node Venus conjunction, which is it's true past life stuff. Not everyone has that, so we are blessed that that's what we chose this life. But you know, he still stuck it out. So no matter what, because of that Venus South Node conjunction too, even when my heart was ripping out, like, oh my God, how are we not together? How am I going to move to another state with this guy? You know, and Joel was the support when that happened, even on the phone going, if he loves you, Tiarnie, he'll wait. You're amazing. So here I am, going to move away, and my soulmate, the person I am meant to walk this earth with, held me in that even. That's how strong Joel is. And he is my greatest teacher, and he blows me away every single day. Like I'm moved to tears so often. And, you know, and we've committed to each other and the work, you know, our foundation is rock solid. And that's why if we crumble up here every now and again, we're okay, because the foundation's good. But if you're not working on that foundation, you might have these little highs and, oh, we've got this to look forward to, or we're getting married, or we're having a baby, but you don't have a foundation. So you're constantly crumbling. You're constantly going into react mode, or he pisses me off by the way he looks, or, you know, but that's the thing, because you've got no foundation. So my biggest thing is work on yourself and that foundation, you know, come together. And as women and being in a relationship, you know, all these spiritual women, I'm not compromising. Well, you'll be single forever. You know?
Exactly.
That's not about going, I'm going to stop being who I am, because I have never stopped being who I am, ever. Yeah. Not one bit. I have never sacrificed myself or my soul for anyone, and I never will. And neither has Joel, neither has Joel. And if he tried to, I encourage him not to. Don't you do that for me, or don't you do that for anyone else. What is your soul saying? Do not sacrifice who you are to be in a relationship, because if you are, you're not in the right relationship. Full stop, the end of story. That's just, from my experience.
And I think that is the absolutely perfect place to finish our conversation. Do not ever compromise who you are to be in a relationship, and don't ever expect anybody else to compromise who they are to be in a relationship with you. No. Wow, what a great conversation. Thank you so much. And thanks for sharing about your relationship with us. I know, that's a personal kind of thing, but I really felt that it would be the best conversation for us to have, to take things, and I think we have, beyond the leading edge. So thank you so much for that.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. So I just want to wrap up by saying that we do this every Friday at the same time. Please be sure to come along and watch the show, and we have comments and Q&A and that sort of thing in the comment section as well. More importantly, what I want to say to you is that you are loved, and I just want to encourage everybody to really tap into that sense of unconditional love within themselves, and then bring that out into the world. That's what we're here for, is to be our full self and to take that out into the world, and not expect anyone else to ever be less than that for us as well. Thank you so much for watching Transformational Conversations, and we will see you again next week.